So, welcome back to SpearFactor. It's been a while. It's been almost a year since I've done an episode, and I needed a break just to kind of get some other things taken care of, and I wanted to make sure when I was engaging with my guest that they had my full attention and being genuine and not just trying to meet a deadline or meet like I want to get 2 episodes out this month, so it felt disingenuous and like rushed. So, our guest here today is Aleksander Nordahl. He is a Norwegian freediver, photographer.
Journalist, photographer, whatever.
Yeah. And I actually got in touch with you because Glenn Sadler reached out and said, hey, and shared your stuff with me because I guess you filmed them doing the ice freediving in Norway. And I was like, okay, that looks. First of all, I was like, why would you do that? Why would you want to do that? But I guess it was your photos or whatever. It looked pretty amazing. And I was like, there's obviously a story here that if I'm not aware of it, I know there might be other people that aren't aware of it. So maybe I'll share that. So
yeah,
that's why
Bret, I'll tell you very quick why I freedive without any security under the ice. It's to relax.
I love it.
So when I've been doing my daytime job and as a journalist of traveling around the world, I only long for making a hole in the ice, walk into the woods to my local lake, make a hole in the ice, and sit there and breathe and clear my head and get rid of everything in my head and dive down.
Is that because there's nothing else to focus on? Like it's such a, there's so many things that are happening like now, like the coldest water I've ever been in is probably 42. And I definitely remember jumping into that again with a wetsuit and everything. And there were some things that I wasn't used to, like your face burning and then it goes numb and it's fine. But
it goes away.
Yeah. And I know your eyeballs, like taking your mask off and opening your eyes underwater was interesting. But there was something that was so kind of wild about it. I think it does increase your mammalian dive reflex, right? Just that cold water on your face.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be that cold. You know, for me, it's kind of like the thing I long for every time. I don't know, for some reason. I was sitting in Washington, D.C., and it was the last couple of days in the last presidential election. All my news team had COVID. I didn't get it. I don't know why. And everybody was waiting who would be, claiming to be president or whatever you say in the States. And all I was dreaming of was going into my wood, going into the forest. And you actually drag, diving gear, and you have to walk in. So you go out on the ice. You have this giant kind of Ninja Turtle saws that you open like a opening knife, and you start to do it this way. And people, why don't you use a chainsaw? First of all, if you do a chainsaw, there is so much stuff in the water that you can't see anything for days. And actually, the whole process of going in, making the hole, takes a couple of hours, and then sitting down. And it's what, like you said, you have to be totally present. And there is a lot of resting in just focusing on your breath, your heart rate, and nothing else. And when you go down and you start to feel comfortable after a couple of trials, it's first of all like floating in outer space, because up and down, when you're really comfortable in the water, you know how it is. You can hang upside down and take pictures. You can float in a current. You can do whatever when you feel. And you're looking up on the ice cap and away from the hole, and it's like looking and watching maybe some glacier from outer space. And the reason why I feel so rested after a day like that is, of course, of the physical strength, but it also, you are thinking of nothing else. Not your kids, not your dog, not your wife have is yelling at you, not work, not your loan, not your car, not anything, not politics, anything. And everything is gone. And the only way to enjoy that time is to get everything away. And of course, it also makes you a better freediver and underwater photographer, because you're sitting there. And when we are doing this with the people I trust, I do it also with two of my daughters. They are my eldest daughter are a lot of time being my safety diver when I diving with whales or whatever. And it's actually sitting there, and this you don't talk. I go down first, then I sit and wait, and then the freediver is coming down, and you take your pictures. They are done. They go up again. Then you come up. So it's kind of like this involuntarily hardcore training, because you go down before them and you come up before them, and then you have the cold water. And actually, I'm the only one who's not freezing because I'm working. And I think some of the most best pictures I'm taking of other freedivers is under the ice, because you have to be totally present and focused. Yeah, you see, when I talking about ice diving, I get totally lost. I had my last free dive on the ice a couple of days ago, and then it's kind of like when the spring is coming, and this lake is the deepest around where I live, so it's the last one to freeze and the last one to melt. You come in early in the morning and it's crispy, and then after 4 hours you kind of thinking, I shouldn't take off my wetsuit, I should, because the ice is like this. So you walk in, and that's the last, then that's the last dive for the season.
Well, that could be interesting.
You're welcome.
All your stuff. So you guys, they go down lines still, right? Do they still follow down lines, or are they just using?
Yeah, what we do, people get surprised, but what we do, I must admit, I don't like lines, but we have a line going from a float, and it goes down. So for the first time, if you're there and with me, we're having this line yard, which is much bigger than a regular freediving line. It's probably much more like a surf line yard with a really heavy hook. So you just go down, and you are sure that you are stuck in this line. This lake is 54 meters. I don't know how much that is in feet, but it's pretty deep, and you can't go down. It's too deep to go to the bottom. And then by having this long line yard, first of all, you just go up and down, and you just stay there. And I ask people to just look up and hold themselves down. Then, since you have a long line yard, you can start to swim, because it's just weights on the end of it. And I just use a couple of kilos. Then you can start to swim. And after a couple of dives, most people take off the security, and they just focus on that line in the middle of the hole. But most of the times, I dive with really good freedivers. So we have this thing where if I take pictures with two that going down, there is a third one always sitting watching, and it's going to be a strong diver. So since we don't have lines, and if for some reason you panic or don't see the hole, but then you're not concentrated enough, he or she can take the rope and swim to you and hook it up and drag you back. And there's a lot of other ice divers, for example, in Finland, have all this line, and you follow the line forth and back. But I'd usually go with the people I trust. My wife isn't very happy. I remember bringing my then 15-year-old daughter, the youngest one, and of course she wanted a picture for Instagram, and she got it.
Course.
And we didn't tell her mother or my wife, and we're still married, that it was coming. So when my daughter was posting the picture, writing something, hanging out with dad or something like this in Norwegian, she was like, Ethan, not you too. So it is only one of my 3 daughters who doesn't dive. It's a good. Can you imagine going into the forest, diving under the ice with your daughters?
Well, that was the thing that actually caught my attention, was when Glenn had posted about it, looking at you guys walking through the woods where you would expect to see like hunting gear or hiking gear or snow something, and you guys were all in your wetsuits, and you're like legitimately hiking through the woods. It was quite a sight. And then the diving part, I was just like, so you just cut. I mean, the whole thing was kind of wild. I've never really seen that, and yeah, I've never seen it. I mean, I've seen, I guess, pictures of people like diving in the ice, but it was more like on the like when the ice was froze over. It wasn't like they were hiking. It was like more organized, if you will, rather than just going for a jaunt in the woods and cutting a hole in the ice and going for it. Which was pretty awesome. I mean, that literally was just like, it reminded me of like, like some Canadian guy going hunting or something, and then just your wetsuits were just so out of place. It was pretty hilarious and fascinating at the same time.
Yeah, and we get dressed on the ice. So when it's -10, and you do it for the first time, and you're too slow putting that hot water in your suit, or you didn't pay attention when I told them to mix it as hot water as you can and put it into something that will keep it warm, and they don't believe you. They do after the first time when it's blowing northerly wind and it's -10. And then again you have the camera. It's fresh water. If you have to keep the camera in the water all the time if it's that cold, because if you take it out, it's fresh water. I remember we had this really big dream of taking. There's this really good wildlife tracking photographer. He doesn't dive, but we met on the ice. He was ice skating, because in Norway, before the snow comes and it's cold, the lakes just freeze over, so you can go speed skating on all these lakes. And both of us are photographers, so we dreamt of having this picture taking of a speed skater above and a freediver under. And so we had this whole thing, made this whole thing. We put up a tent by the hole and a fireplace, and they were eating food, and we're going to have the blue hour, and everything was perfect. Everything was planned. A lot of people were helping up. And of course, I couldn't help myself, so I went in the water, and there was a northerly wind, which basically makes your camera to freeze. So, but finally, when the light was perfect, we put it under lights under the ice. I took it up, and it was frozen, and nobody had any hot water left, and we didn't have time to cook it because it's like 5 minutes with. Right. So we did a kind of little stupid. I don't know if you can say it in your podcast, but we had 4 grown men urinating pissing over my camera. Yeah, pissing on it to get it out. But it didn't help because it kind of froze on the way down. The way down before. So, but I got to take one picture, and it was okay. But then we just made a film of a picture that wasn't taken. But the film was pretty good, actually.
I mean that image. If you could, so did you cut out like basically a track so that the skater would skate on top, and then the freediver would be right underneath them, and you could get like a split?
Yeah, we tried that 2 times, and the last picture we wanted to take was actually him sitting on his reindeer skin with the fireplace and the tent and doing that thing too. And that was what we're going to take in there, what like we call the blue hour, or blue 5 minutes, or whatever you call it. And that was the time when the camera froze. So it was, yeah.
So, I mean, have you ever had your camera freeze in salt water at all? Or is it just,
much it's colder? A lot of, but it's in a lot of the deep Norwegian fjords, you have a lot of glaciers, and you have a lot of
brackish water.
Yeah. So that happens. But actually, and the salinity of the ocean here and the fjord here is getting worse and worse. So there's, for example, my boat in the fjord here, I have to kind of go down and chop the ice around it to get, and sometimes I have to take my boat through 5 centimeters of ice in ocean water.
Okay, so this I experienced a little bit of that in the Puget Sound in Washington, where I said before, I don't know if we were recording yet, but it was like the coldest water I've been in is 42 degrees, and the top layer was blurry. So you dive down, it's clear, and you come up, and it's like the top layer is blurry because that's all the fresh water. And it was almost like fresh water rinsing your gear on the way when you just get out of the water. Um, yeah, it's pretty wild. It's the first time I experienced that. But you also do a lot of research journalism, like you're, well, before we even jump into that, I guess I should say, like, what kind of settings do you do? Do you have to take in consideration when you're doing photography in that environment? Is there anything different that you typically do?
Okay, for first, in Norway we have brackish water for at least 1 meter. That's 203 feet. But I'll give you a good tip, because you can't see anything because it goes like this. But if you are swimming with your body, you always want to swim ahead, and you never stop, because if you swim through this brackish water and don't stop, it will be clear. But if something is moving just a little bit ahead of you or beside of you, it will start to be impossible
Mixing.
to see.
Yeah.
So if you keep moving on this water, you will probably able to take pictures and see something. But as soon as you stop, it's all over. It's all over. So if you just continue swimming, that is the one way. If you swim in the surface, and just a tip with have a lot of diving in brackish waters, and some of them we have this. There's this fjord in Norway called the Trondheimsfjord, and they have deep water corals really high up on the wall, and they're supposed to be like 100 meters down. But the only reason why they're so high up is because of a thick layer of brackish water which keeps the light out. So all these corals thinks it's so deep because it's so dark. So it's good for something.
No, that's a huge tip, actually. I was just thinking about that because I thought my mask was fogged, like blurry or whatever when I was coming up. And it's just really just the mix of the water. And
moving.
But it's 30 feet clear. You know, you go underneath it and you could see forever. Super cool. Well, okay, so you've done photography and you've done journalism, and that's kind of what we were talking about before. And you had mentioned the salinity. And I'm definitely a type of person that's like, I am a lover of the environment, and I want to be a steward of the environment. But I'll be honest, I'm also so jaded by people that are financially motivated, or maybe like the people that are like, the sky is falling, and you're like, I'm not seeing the sky falling. Like, I'm not saying it's not, but maybe not to the degree of which people are, and if so, like, well, then let's fix it. What do we got to do? So when we were talking earlier, you had said, I like what you said about not necessarily blaming, just trying to figure out what's the cause. And when we have a situation like the big environmental impacts that we have in our world today, it's really, I think that's the best way to approach it. Like, I mean, to be totally honest, there was a family emergency recently, or not recently, a couple of years ago, and it's like, look, nobody's here to blame, but this is a problem that needs to be fixed. So let's figure out what the fuck is going on, and then let's address it appropriately. Again, everybody put your egos aside. Who cares what is going on, you know? And that's why I think we should take it with the science part of especially with the environment, because everybody is passionate about it, which is awesome. And a lot of us want to help. And then I feel like some of us get taken advantage of by the people that are not, there's a lot of money to be made in it. And so I think all of us are screaming for, like, we want to trust the science, as they say. Just tell me which science to trust and I'll go all in. Because you had mentioned you've done a lot of the research and the baseline science. Can you kind of explain that a little more? Like, just talking about your background and the baseline science stuff?
Is that I worked 35 years in editor-run media, and I'm so lucky to live in a country where you actually can trust your media, and we have a really, probably people that disagree also, but there are always, people in the different trenches that we disagree. But basically, we have a code of conduct, a code of journalism, and a code of ethics that we should follow. Some say that when it comes to these things, I'm more of a Catholic than the Pope. But I think in a world that is so polarized with different opinions, but also different media, science, I tend to think that my job as a professional witness or a documentarist is really important. And let's start. I've done this work for so many years, and I've always had the diving and freediving as a hobby, as a timeout place, like my lake. It's always something different. And when I've taken pictures on the water, it's just been kind of for myself and for my art. And since 2017, I started to do this. I had this dream about this. It was this. I hang a lot with spear fishermen, and I can come back to that because I think a lot of them are really, really good stewards of the environment and the ocean. So I will explain why. And anyway, I was in this group, and I saw this post of some spearfishers that I knew that was posing with these giant cods. I mean, really giant, just really, really big. And they've been speared deep inside Norwegian fjords. And when they come in the winter to spawn, either in the fjords or outside on the coast, they go really deep. So how is that possible? A long story short, that there are this salmon hatchery on land, and the organic nutrients coming out of those are coming out in pipes in the ocean, because there is some, before they could just put it out there, and of course there's a lot of food, so all the saithe and pollocks and smaller fish are just feeding like everlasting drive-through of McDonald's. They never stop. It's always food. And then these big cods come. They are going to give birth soon. They are big, and it's a free meal. So they go into this school of saithe and pollock, and they get a free meal, an easy meal. And of course, the spearfishermen go in there and hunt the big cod. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's people think it's cheating. It probably is. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But if you're going to try to find a cod in Norway in wintertime, you have to know exactly where it is, and it's pretty deep. Anyway, and when these pipes stopped spewing out the residue from the basins on land, I saw the whole area around was totally flat of this white bacteria thing, which is caused of eutrophication. It's overstimulates of nutrients. It's phosphor, nitrogen, and organic carbon. It's basically, long story short, it basically kills oxygen, which suffocates the bottom. It's like, and I was thinking, why haven't I seen this before? And it's very easy. In journalism, we spend our time and energy in 30% of the planet, which is on land. 70% of the planet is the ocean. It's the ocean, or many oceans, but it's one ocean. And I was thinking, I need to document this. So I started to document. I got into this closed chat group, and I was doing these things. And then it ended up being a big investigative work for my newspaper. I work for the equivalent to the Financial Times, and we had this really strong investigative department. And basically, what we did, we proved how much these land-based facilities, which is basically, if you don't have hatcheries, you don't have a salmon industry. And there are no cleaning, and if there are cleaning, they didn't do a good job. And 9 out of 10 of these places were breaking the law. And it was a lot of investigation. It was like, you have to look at everything. And of course, like the tobacco industry or the pharma industry or the NRA or whatever, they have really strong lobbyists, like these people have. And then you come to your point, Bret, with science. You know, you have scientists for hire. You have self-reporting. You can go down. You can have a company wanting you to do science, and all the scientists will say that we are keeping to the conduct of how science should be done. But the problem is when the scientists find an answer that your customer doesn't want to have, they don't produce it. So that's why I like, and that's why I like baseline science. It's basically trees, carbon. It's a baseline that almost all of us can agree on, except, for example, somebody thinks that still the planet is flat or the Earth is flat, but there's a lot of science we all can agree on.
Right.
And in Norway,
it's true, right?
Yeah. And there's a lot of science, and so let's find a common ground. Okay, we can agree on this, and this. Okay, and then let's agree on that. For example, the Environmental Agency of Norway are making this report that the farms, the industry, the sewage, and the fish farms, they dispose of this and this much nutrients into the ocean, which is registered, and everybody agrees on that. Okay, then you have two parameters. And then you can find all these baseline facts that everybody agree on. But then the thing is, if you analyze all that data, and you have that everybody can agree on, and of course there's a lot of spin doctors and lobbyists, and everybody wants to use it. That's what spin doctors are for, and lobbyists are for, and activists. Activists and lobbyists are the same. But if you dive down and you document this pipe, you document the sediment, you document what's going on, and you bring it up, and you go to a marine biologist and you ask her or him, what is this? And then she would say, this is a filamentous algae, and they will all agree on that. And then you can ask a question, what feeds this filamentous algae? It's fed by nutrients, but it grows quicker with warmer water and climate change. Everybody agrees on that. And what I've done now the last 2.5 years is traveling along the coast and basically documenting what I see. And I have baseline scientists telling me what it is. And all this material becomes really powerful by itself. But if I just put in the baseline science that everybody agrees on, then you have actually something that you can't be polarized about. And let me put it the other way. Everything about the ocean and the environment is a polarized story. You have the people with the political agendas, and you have the people with the economical agendas. Political agendas can be, let's say, call them activists. The economical agenda can be the companies and the lobbyists, and you have politicians, everything. And for you and me, who do we trust? That's where people like me come in, and I like to think that's the important thing with having somebody that is documenting that you trust. And I would never call myself an ocean conservationist. I would never call myself an activist. I only call myself a documentarist. And the thing is, if you stay on that line, and I don't have an opinion about salmon farming. I'm just saying, here are the pictures that I've taken. Here is science, what these pictures show. Make up your own mind. And in this world of polarization, I've decided to go from the mainstream media to become really narrow-minded, strict documentarists. Because if I use the power of visual journalism, and that is actually basically what I've done when I'm going to Iraq or Afghanistan, which I spent most of my life in these places, is that I put myself down there, I document what I see, I bring it back to show the world. And the thing is that we do it on land, on 30% of the planet, but nobody of us goes beneath the surface. And the whole thing about this is that I'm doing all this by freediving because it's for me and you that probably never go down to 250 meters or going down. It's finding this really rare fish with this light bowl out of his head on 5,000 meters. And this means this and this. Nobody would care, or you don't feel it in your body. Why it's important to me? Yeah. But if you do as a freediver, and you go down, and you can show people what's just 1 meter below the surface or 2 meters, then it becomes really powerful.
Yeah, it's more attainable.
So, yeah. And so now I quit my job in the mainstream media, and I've gone around for 2.5 years documenting, and now I work with scientists that are doing baseline science and explaining it. We are letting go out our first report in a couple of weeks. So basically, the simple question that we just ask a simple question. For example, in this case, it is how much pollution and nutrients does fish farming produce? It's a simple question. And we're only using public data, we're only using official data that everybody agrees on, and we pull them together and we quantify it and make it into human capital. So that's how you can do it, and how you can kind of make ocean data and science relatable to you as a person, because you can relate to this. And then you start to take pictures and you get people to explain it. And we have this really good senior scientist he can just actually be the actual way of seeing it. For example, if your family makes a living and they have, let's say, this $50,000 to live on, but your bank wants 55,000 a year, you're going in minus, and that's what the ocean is doing. It's as easy as that. And that's
one thing you said, and I just want to discuss it, is the one thing that I've seen people do is when you talk about baseline, they'll modify the baseline to minimize the problem. And so they'll, the easiest way I can describe this is they'll doing a traffic study by my house where I used to live. There's a traffic study. They want to put 80 apartments there. And so they did a traffic study to show that the roads can handle it. And the traffic study was done in the summertime when school's not around, and during like the weekend where there's not as much cars going to the base where we were. So they have this little number and they said, look, there's not even that much. It could totally handle more. When everybody else knows, like, are you kidding me? Like, the traffic is lined up because
that's exactly it.
Yeah, big business wanted to build, the real estate developers wanted to build it there. And so I've seen it work good and bad, like where, I don't mean that, but I mean like they'll minimize something, or they'll explode, or they'll do, someone will stick their head in the ocean and say, I didn't see any sharks. Sharks are extinct from this area. And I had this actually talk with Daniel Mann offline. It was like, they're not looking at the right part of the reef at the right time of day when the tide's high and all this stuff. And they're like, sharks are extinct. And you're like, hold on now. Like, I've seen sharks like at this spot. So there's no way they're gone, So there's those two kind of things that can happen. Downplaying something and then over, like, I thought they did that a lot in this Seaspiracy documentary, where I didn't, and again, I'm guilty of this. I don't have any data. I'm not a scientist, but they're like 90% of these sharks are gone. And I was like, bullshit. I'm just using my common sense here. If 90% of the population of human beings went away, you would know, none of us would probably we might see one in a lifetime, if 90% of humans went away. I've seen those sharks, and I've only dove in that air, like dove where those sharks live, maybe 3 times in my life, and I've seen 2 of them. It just doesn't make sense considering the ocean is 70%. So I was just doing this like little logical sound test in my head of what's going on, you know? But going back to what we were talking about, where it's like, just give me the bottom line, baseline science, and so that we can figure out there. Everybody agrees that there is a problem. You know what I mean? We all have to agree there's a problem. One side's going to say there's no problem because that's So you got to come up with that.
And it might be that the 91 in the world, people are tending to it really good, so they stick around. They have no natural predators. They have still food. There's still a functioning ecosystem. So that could be the third baseline science or baseline proof that is good. And I think generalizing, and it's, for example, in Norway, when people don't like, for example, whale hunting, but it's different. There's a lot of different species of whales, and there's a lot of indigenous people that live by it, and there's a lot of places where we fish up the fish, and a lot of whales are starving to death. So it's always a cost of something. But what I do know is that the ocean is changing, and it's too few people who sees it. And I had this lecture in the nature photo contest, the international one. It was in Helsinki at that time, and I asked all the nature photographers to ask themselves, or ocean photographers or whatever, scuba divers or whatever, why do you travel all around the world to still get a glimpse of this beautiful thing? And on the way to these places, you are passing slums, you're passing, garbage, and you're passing. And this area, for example, in the ocean is becoming smaller and smaller. And all of us and all of them are sticking to the same rhetoric that I want to show the beauty of the ocean to save it. But if all the nature photographers, all the underwater photographers go to these beautiful places to show how it is, and who is telling and showing what's really broken and what's really bad? And we know for sure that 60% of the kelp forests in the ocean are gone. In New Zealand, 90% is gone. In Norway, 50% is gone. Those are the locomotives, the engines of the oceans. It's the perfect ecosystems. It's like, it's reproductive. It's more productive than a cornfield, and it fertilizes itself and it waters itself. So it's kind of like the perfect ecosystem. And in New Zealand, 90% is gone, 60%, and we don't see it. And there's a big, and I think what made me, there's a lot of excellent, good journalists and photographers who can cover Gaza, who could cover Israel, who could cover Afghanistan, who could cover all the bad things, Sudan, everything going on. And I've done it for 32 years, 33. But what I found out is, like, when I'm trying to tell stories about the ocean, is I have this feeling that I'm attending the most important press conference in my career. I'm the only journalist present, and what they say at this press conference is the most important thing for all to hear. So I'm calling the editor and saying, this is an insane story. And then the editor doesn't have time to listen to me, doesn't understand what I'm saying, don't agree. And that was the feeling I had about when I wanted to do journalism or photojournalism on the water, under the surface. And that's what is going on. And there's, it's a Canadian author called Margaret Atwood. I guess you heard of her. And she has, and I'm cherry picking a quote I saw that she sent to a common friend, a joint friend of us. And it's basically very simple. Kill the ocean and you die. If you kill the ocean, we die.
Right.
And the scary part now is that the ocean, throughout hundreds of millions of years of this accumulation and this production, the oxygen and the air we breathe has been produced by the ocean. And the popular conception, and then back to science again, using it, you want cherry picking, is that every second breath we take is the perfect, it's given by the ocean. That's the perfect freediving analogy. It's every second breath is given to you by the ocean,
Yeah.
That's wrong. The ocean hasn't given us any oxygen for decades, or at least a lot of years, because the oceans have no more oxygen to give to themselves. They're keeping to it. So basically what we are doing is that the ocean is not, yes, the ocean has produced most of the oxygen in the atmosphere and the air we breathe. But that was a long, long time ago. Now we are at a state that the ocean doesn't even produce enough oxygen for itself. So you actually have a lot of large areas in the ocean now where there is no oxygen. So if you think as a spearfisherman or a freediver, the following thing: you lie on the surface, you breathe up, you're going down to that halibut, you fill your lungs, you dive down, and on the way down, you're empty of air. And you try to go up again, but you never ever reach the surface. And when you come up, if you come up, there's no air left. That's what's going on in parts of the ocean. There are places in the ocean now where living creatures can't get any oxygen anymore. And that's only because of us.
Where is that?
Now it's I read the last this is that it's around 200 places now where you have these so-called anoxic events, and it's increasing. There are, I told you about this. I've been into these beautiful Norwegian fjords, and in some places the eutrophication or the nutrients coming out is so high that it's kind of, very easy said, using up all the oxygen, and so this bacteria thrive, and H2S, which is a lethal gas, is produced. This winter, some scientists asked to borrow my boat, and I can follow them to this place close to my home. And for some reason, there was a lot of nutrients in this 200 by 200 square meters. It was basically a yacht club. And there was something that come in the water bed for a long time. And when you smell that rotten stench of rotten egg on the surface.
Sulfur.
Yeah, sulfur. And then you get hydrogen sulfate, which is really dangerous. You can Google it or whatever, you can die. And it's heavier than air. So when you touch the bottom and it comes up, and it's you can't see it. The white stuff is bacteria, but what's coming up is gas, and it's heavier than air, so it lies over the surface. And the only time in my career for now 40 years of freediving and diving, I've not dared to dive. It's not because of sharks. It's not because of boas. It's not because of alligators. It's not because of anything or crazy people with scooters. It's because of this. Because can you imagine lying and breathing up through a snorkel, and the air of 30 centimeters above the surface makes you faint and die? That's what is going on. So it's close to us. And of course, this is not one of the 200 places that the UN has found. But this is small pockets of it, and that's going on all around us. And it's so I think this story that and this quest that I'm done. I'm probably, I don't know if I go back to any wars again. But if you ask my wife and they ask me, are you happy that Alex has stopped going to all these dangerous places? And he's quit covering wars, and she would just say, no, he's not quit any wars. He's found a new one, and that's telling stories from the ocean.
My wife said I went to Guam for a couple deployments, and she used to make fun of me because it was like a vacation. And I said, really? This is like the most dangerous deployment ever. I'm literally diving deep every day. There's a lot of sharks if we, shoot stuff. Like if I really do add it up, it's probably more dangerous than anything else I've ever done. And that was like our little inside joke. She might disagree, but I don't know. I had some pretty close calls with some sharks. But so with the kelp, I want to talk about this because this is important. This happens in California. There's a huge issue with people saying, with us, the kelp is dying off in California coast. Some people refuse that it's happening. I'm under the boat of like, I haven't seen it in my own backyard as much, but I do know that it's happening other places without a doubt. And the evidence that was presented by some environmentalist group was they took pictures, satellite imagery. Well, the problem with that, the satellite imagery are the currents really strong? Because a lot of the kelp that I've seen is subsurface underwater. And so then people take that and they're like, it's all lies. Now you're all lying to me. There's no, my thing is that I think the real issue that's going on with everybody is that the kelp, the majority of people would agree the kelp is dying off. The issue is what is the cause and what is it's kind of like, and where I talk about this before too, with school shootings and shootings in the United States. No one is disagreeing that this needs to stop, that there's an issue. The problem is they're busy fighting about it, like back and forth of one says, get rid of all guns. The other people are like, fix the culture or fix whatever crime and punishment. Meanwhile, everybody's fighting and the problem is still happening 30 years later, 40 years later. It's still going on and everything's, I feel like the kelp, everyone's fighting over what's going on. Meanwhile, the kelp's dying. What is is it pollution? I think that's a factor of, like you said before, 20%, 30%, 40%. Like, but what do you think is causing the kelp issue specifically? I'm sure it's multi-layered.
But the single and most important layer are very simple. Is you and me, as humans. So if, let's say, go to northern Norway, from the Russian border to Lofoten Islands, where I was born, not even halfway. Norway has a long coast. It's the green sea urchins that have eaten the kelp. These becomes these really crazy predators, and that's because we have overfished the natural predators like the wolffish or the giant cod or whatever. It's an imbalance, and for the first couple of years, there's been this what do you call it? These fluctuations, and it comes back,
ebb and flow.
Yeah. But now we know that since 1970s, it hasn't come back. That's the problem. Number one, if you restore the kelp forest up there, I think there was a study saying that you could have 50,000 tons of wild cod every year because of the kelp forest. It's basically the breeding ground for life. It's the most perfect ecosystem in the world. And it stores carbon and it produces oxygen. It's perfect in its food. It's like circular. And now from the south of Norway, you have the nutrients that is making this filamentous algae, opportunistic algae that are suffocating and taking away the light and taking away. And when they die each autumn, they go to the bottom and it suffocates the bottom. So you have that. That's also human-made. And then you have this
other... Is that from pollution? I'm sorry.
Yeah, pollution. It's from all the wastewater. It's from sewage. It is from fish farming. It's basically nitrogen, phosphor, and organic carbon. It's basically, like we talked about in the British sense, it's sewage, it's agriculture, it's industry. But organic carbon, it's, and you find it. And basically, we're not cleaning, and we have always used the ocean as a cesspool, and we still do. And we don't see what's going on. That's why your job and other, people's job is so important, that show what it is, and don't only focus on this macro thing of this snail that is that big, but show what's going on. And then, for example, in New Zealand, it's multi-layered. It's warmer waters. You have overfishing. You have urchins. And the interesting part is, for example, the kelp forests in South Africa, where you have kelp stems and stipes and blades that can be 15 meters. It's like insane. And the kelp forest is blooming. And the ocean is too wild. But most importantly, there are no greedy bastards and industrialists wanting to profit from it. So we, in the modern society and civilized world, we are, excuse my language, fucking up the forests, the kelp forests.
Right.
But there is thriving. And also there are now, in South America, they're starting to come back. So, but the problem is this: it's like if you all the kelp forests, and some facts about kelp, and people don't know, kelp forests are disappearing 4 times faster than the rainforests. Kelp forests are disappearing 2 times faster than the coral reefs.
And one thing about that too that's so wild is kelp grows so fast.
Yep.
I thought it was like a foot a day or 3 feet, something crazy, 3 feet a day.
Yeah.
And for something to be able to regenerate so fast, and it's still slowly getting picked out, like here in California, it's our sheep's head. Why I don't shoot sheep's head, I don't like to shoot them, because there's urchins, and that's one thing as a diver. I don't need the laws to tell me that or regulate it. It's just that because I can see it. Like, I don't need to do that. I'm trying to help in any way I can, and that's one way. Some people would say, "Oh, well, you shouldn't be in the kelp forest at all." I'm like, no, the fact that I'm in it and I'm cognizant of everything and how it works is really what empowers people like us to take action, or at least, I can't fix everybody else's house, but I can fix my own,
Yeah. And I totally, and I know a lot of environmentalists or whatever, they don't think that way, but my best helpers, the people I spend the most time with, the people I guess most intelligence from and most tips from, are other freedivers and spearfishermen. And it's not the freedivers that close your eyes and have an inner journey going as deep as possible. It's apnea guys. It is spearfishermen who swim vast distances and who have spent a lot of years and time because they're noticing things. Because how this old saying that a fisherman will fish the last fish and he will complain why he's gone. But a spearfisherman swim down to the fish and see for themselves why they are gone. And that's why I think it's so, and we collect that fish. We go down, we sneak up on it, and we point and we shoot, we kill it fast and we eat it. But we also pay attention because we hunt in kelp forest. We look under the rocks. We do all these things, and that's why I'm mostly using spearfishermen, because you have this blindness to change. People have that blindness to change. I don't. My kids would probably not know what a really beautiful kelp forest would look like ever. And it's like, and we have this blindness to change, but people who spend a lot of time in nature and are hunting, and especially fishermen, they see what's going on. So that's why I use them I go with them all the time, and they get the Insta photo of themselves with a big fish, and I get some intelligence and a free ride and a free meal, which is really good.
I guess we could talk a little bit about that. I don't want to change the topic. I know we're almost out of time, but I know you've got a lot of experience shooting, taking photos of the halibut divers and the spear fishermen. Can you tell us like a little bit about that, your experience with it?
Yeah, it's I never shot a fish in my life, but I feel the most close to spear fishermen that comparison with any divers, because first of all, I hang out with them. They go for their hunting, and how they have body system, you go in different way, but we just look at each other, and And my two best friends are spear fishermen, and they're living in different part of the coast. And we meet up 4 times a year, and we go hunting. And one of the places we go hunting is something called Saltstraumen. It's the strongest tidal current in the world. It's my wife asking where I am. I'm busy. This is important. I'm gonna tell her. I'm not gonna tell her. Don't tell her I said that.
Well, I'll cut it out. Yeah.
Yeah, good. And because of this, it's like you can have a current that is 20 knots speed of a tidal current, and you have this maelstrom that can suck you down. And so I started going there, and there's a fantastic life with giant kelp, big cuts, and everybody. And if you dive and the current never stops, it just turns. So if you know where to dive and freedive in these places, you can kind of use the current and drop, and then you swim a little crazy like out, and then the backdrop will take you back, and it's like over this. And in this place, there's a lot of giant fish and a lot of giant too. And seeing and being able to lie behind a spear fisherman, and when you actually see, I've seen halibut that is 200 kilos. It's as tall as me. I'm pretty tall. It's almost 2 meters. So I'm probably 6'8" or 6'9". I don't know what I am, but I'm tall.
Yeah. So I'm 6'3". So I'd say, what is it? 2 meters, 6'6" maybe.
No, 2 meters. But I'm tall. I'm 194. And I wear my size 13.5 shoes. So I'm a tall guy. Anyway, and when you see a beautiful halibut your size, and to be a really, really good halibut hunter, you know that you shouldn't pull the trigger on that one. First of all, the meat isn't good. And secondly, it's lived for a long, long time. And it takes a long time before they start to produce offsprings. And seeing this really good spear fisherman, when you have this, and the size that you have to hit, you have to glide down from behind, from the side, and the brain is really, really small. If you shoot and we miss the brain or the spine, and you shoot this halibut, it's basically a 2-meter long muscle flying around in the ocean. It will drag you forever. It's impossible to take. So you need to hit the brain, most preferably. And you have a fish that is lying there. It's a predator, but if you see the fish, and if you do the right way and see this battle, it's something else. And the meat is and there's a lot of people coming to Norway to do this giant halibuts, but if you're going to shoot a giant halibut here, you won't get any credibility from Norwegian freedivers and spear fishermen, because the big ones are trophies. And there's also a regulation in Norway of the smallest size you can take, but also the biggest size you can take.
Yeah, slot limits. That's that's been a huge push because it works. It makes sense. We were talking about, I was just recently talking about this with Grouper. My friends recently went on a trip that we've been going to this one reef, this one area, not really a reef. And, we're taking, every time we go down, we're taking fish. And it just got to the point where we were, everybody was kind of going on the same page. Like everybody was like thinking the same thing of, how much grouper do I need? I only take, and then this biggest one, you look at these big ones and it's like, oh, I want a bigger one. I want a bigger, and my friend saw this grouper that, it was massive apparently. They got it on footage and they just looked at it. They didn't even, it was just like one of those things where it was like the respect you have for, regardless of all the other stuff, the stuff that you had mentioned, big breeders, strong genetics, obviously, smart, everything that did for this thing to survive and keep this reef healthy.
Yeah.
Same, just like the halibut.
Yeah.
But realistically, it's like, I'm here to get food and this whole experience. And really, it's gotten worse, I think, with social media because everybody wants the picture of the big fish.
Yeah. And posts. Yeah.
Yeah, in the post. And it was like, we're going to destroy the thing that we really like if we aren't like, but all of us were thinking about it. And I was really actually kind of proud of my buddies and I for thinking about it. Like, not necessarily me, but like my buddies, because it shows a maturity, but it shows like we as divers, like we're all on the same page and we're getting there. Someone has mentioned this to me before, just kind of a sudden thing that happens when you spend a lot of time in the ocean. And yeah, it's you know, the other thing is you're shooting something that is so big, it's a predator. So it's not like it really has a natural fear of you for the most part. But it's awesome to get a picture of it. Like people have seen this, and I've talked about this before. I have this triggerfish that I know would have been a world record. And it's so dumb and big. It swam right. I thought it was a grouper at first. It swam up to me and I'm just filming it. And I was like, what's up, buddy? Like, do I shoot this thing as a world record? I've always wanted a world record. Look at this thing. This is awesome. And I'm filming and you can see it on the. So why do I need to shoot it? To show you like, oh, I don't really want to eat it.
No, it's a general thing. The best hunters know when not to shoot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm doing a documentary on following this family that have been hunting whales for generations, and you can like it and you cannot. But I see that they really respect the ocean. And I was standing with the guy in the front. He's a hunter. He's a spear fisherman. He is a hunter on land, and all thing. And then I'm sitting there trying and waiting for him to shoot this minke whale, which is
I know
they shoot in yeah. And I said, why don't you shoot? No, I'm not sure that I will kill it instantly. But does that matter? Yeah. First of all, I'm a hunter. I'm a good one. And then secondly, the meat will be bad because I want to kill it instantly. And whatever you think about hunters, if you live by this code and you're gonna shoot to kill, and you're gonna shoot and it's gonna be killed instantly, it's much better than having a halibut fighting the line for 3 hours. And then you have catch and release, and the whole thing is destroyed and it's gone. And what I like about spear fishermen also is, and working with them, is that they know so much about the ocean, and also they are in some way practical conservationists. They are living by the code, or at least the good ones. You have those people who are just doing YouTube videos, but I feel like the time for this bang YouTube videos from spear fishermen are over, at least for the good ones. I hope it is. I know it's no more like making real footage. And I have my friend Örjan, who is a really, really, really good spear fisherman. He's national team leader, and what he's dreaming now in Salströmen is that I take a picture of him lying beside a giant halibut, and he's lying like a mermaid beside the halibut.
No, I think you're right. I think that is gone. I think it's the story. You could watch so many things. It's like, okay, shoot, great. But the story of it all, I mean, that's really what, people don't watch movies for the endings. They watch movies for the story. The movies are really about the same 5 things. But I think you're right. I mean, people fall in love with the ocean not because they get to shoot something,
There's this the person who made me think that I want to do more stories about the ocean. I don't need to do lifestyle stories about the ocean. I've taken pictures of this famous spy whale. We did it's one of the most fantastic spear fishermen I know. His name is Paulo Afonso. He's living in the Azores, in Pico.
Yes, I know him.
I visited him a couple of times, and the story was following him, and because he's living smack in the Atlantic Ocean, and he see how the ocean changes. and there are species that wasn't there before, and there's species that is gone. With sharks that's never been there before who has gone, whales and so on. And Paolo, he is living off and by the ocean. His lifestyle is actually, he's living in a small village. He's the city secretary. He's like the administrator of this little village, and he's got this, and he's hunting this tuna fish, 300 kilos, with this gigantic spear gun. But what he knows about the ocean and the way he treats it, and also the knowledge of the ocean, I don't think anybody would have that knowledge if you weren't a spear fisherman who actually learned and lived by and off the ocean. I met so many fishermen, professional fishermen, who doesn't have this knowledge about the ocean and understanding. They love the boat and the ocean and looking at whatever, but they are still 2 meters from the surface. They never go down. They're still fishermen, but a spear fisherman and a freediver go down. That's quite something else, and that's why I think the photojournalist in me is doing this as a freediver, because it's basically about going down and telling the story and being present in a place where we're not supposed to be. We are there on borrowed time, but that's also about photojournalism and being a press photographer. You are focusing and creating on this limited time, and it's the same as a spear fisherman. You're hunting in this limited space of time in a place you're not supposed to be. So you have to be focused. So it's basically the two of the same thing.
That was well said. I happen to agree with you. I think fishermen kind of are unique because they try to do everything that we do from just the top part of the water. So that's like fascinating to me when you meet good ones, that they can figure it out from the top based on currents and topography. But I also say, like, there's times where multiple times I've been with people, there's no fish. I'm like, well, there's fish, they're not biting. And then I dive down. I've done this with my son when he was younger. I was like, hold on, give me my mask. I'm going to dive down. And there's just fish everywhere. And we're not catching a thing. And just those little data points of like, why aren't they biting? Okay, well, there's plenty of fish here. There's certain times, there's currents. And everybody's been fishing where it turns on and turns off like a light switch. Why is that? When we've been diving, we've seen it turn on and turn off like a light switch based on the current switching around, but we get to see it in action. And those are those things that I think really make us a true, outdoorsman, a true waterman, or to understand all of that. And it takes time. It takes years. But I really appreciate you sharing that story with us. And what is the name of the documentary that's coming out, or your?
I have it's a multi-layered document. It's 5 stories, but the main thing that it's become a lecture also. It's called On One Breath Past the Tipping Point. It's basically and the tipping point is basically when you see an ecosystem that has become something else, and it's past the tipping point. And for me as a freediver, and probably you, who are more than 25 years old, we go into a place, and we probably haven't thought about it, but we have dove past so many tipping points because there's ecosystems that it wasn't like this. It's like 20 years ago up in Lofoten, my favorite kelp forest to dive in was just outside my house. It's just barren rocks left. It's nothing. It's no kelp left. And so that's diving past a tipping point. So this story will be. I spent about 2.5 years, so it will be a big story on the nutrients. It will be a photo essay. 1 year will be a film. But you will have I will share a scroller story from the institute I'm working for now, and you can see how it's done. And there's also and one of the most important things that we are doing and I think back to science is that, okay, you have the science and we had this discussion with the marine biologists working on this, and they said it's a big problem scientifically to really prove the connection between this algae and the pollution, and it was like this complex thing. And then the scientist said, he's 77 years old, still diving. He's one of my regular diving partners. He's a fantastic man. He should be on this show. But and he said, but Alex, you've forgotten something. Science can be so much. I've been documenting now 204 places with freediving along the coast for 2.5 years. Some of these places I've been to in the winter, spring, summer, and autumn to see the seasonal change. I've been there over 3 years, 2.5 years. 2023 was the first. And he said, you've done the science. All the footage you have from the same spots the last 3.5 years is proof, is science. Well, there was a spear fisherman who has been diving with his, started out when it was GoPro 1, I don't know, and now it's GoPro 15 or whatever. And it's been to the same reef, shooting the same fish. And I said, you've made science. You know, all the footage you have from this place, you can see how it's changed.
It's field research. Yeah, we've talked about that too before, where I don't have a PhD next to my name, but what you're talking about is exactly what some friends and I have talked about too. It's that you're literally doing the research by just being there and taking notice and observing.
Yep. So it's and documenting it, and then you can have people like my friend Hartwig, the scientist, explaining what we see, and he is very dry. It's like he doesn't want to have any opinions on who's to blame, but he's stating facts. He's stating baseline science, and together with my picture, and then we have the problem that you can be accused as being an activist or whatever, and then I tell them, no, I'm a documentarist, and don't shoot the messenger. You have it's a difference between being the bearer or having a meaning or bearer of meanings or the bearer of proof. I come with the proof. Don't shoot me. This is just what I've seen, and that's why, and that's we need to. Yeah, that's why I stick to these terms.
Can you imagine applying that to other places in your life where you're like, hey, there's a problem, the car, it's like when you're a teenager, hey dad, the tire's flat on the car, and the dad just like says, no, it's not, get out there and drive it, and then the car comes back and the car's ruined.
We have some gen setters, scientists here. They miraculously think that in this office kitchen the dishes disappears into the dishwashers and are clean on Monday morning when they come back to work. Isn't it amazing?
We say the little elves come in at night and they clean. Yeah. I'm glad it's not just you or just us. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Aleksander, for your time. And I will. I appreciate you sharing all this stuff. This is amazing. I really, honestly,
we could talk in 2 more hours, but now I had 2 texts from my wife.
I just got the same thing from my boss. So